The Senate today blocked an IVF bill. Do you have any comments you want to share about that, especially considering last time Trump was in Western Wisconsin, he shared his support for that?
So I think we have to be careful here because the Senate did not block an IVF bill. The Senate blocked a ridiculous show vote bill that had no chance of passing.
That is so hilarious to me. First of all, they didn't block an IVF protection bill. No, they did. They did because the law in the bill would be to protect your access to it. And not just that, by the way, we got ahead on TDR of all of the BS that you're hearing today because we broke down on Monday the actual components of the bill. There is nothing radical about any of it. But the only part that theoretically from the perspective of a few years ago could be considered radical is the idea that they would mandate insurance companies to pay for IVF. And Donald Trump has already come out and said that he supports that. Is that the radical part, JD Vance? And so no, it makes sure that you can that you have access to it. The DOJ can investigate if anyone blocks your access to it. Insurance would have to pay for it. And soldiers can freeze their sperm or eggs before deploying in case they lose their lives abroad. Which exact component of that, JD Vance, do you find so reprehensible that you participated in a filibuster of that bill? I would love to ask you that follow-up question.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
But you heard there, I love this. It's amazing. What they did was they blocked a show vote that had no chance of passing. Well, it didn't pass because you guys stopped it from passing. And your argument is, well, we had to stop it from passing because it had no chance of passing. And I tried to put myself into this radical new frame of mind. And the best analogy I've come up with is, so if you're ever standing by a pond and you see a child drowning and you let them drown and their little tiny head goes beneath the surface of the water and never comes back up, and then a bystander runs up to you and is like, why didn't you help them? You could just turn and say, I didn't let them drown. They had no chance of breathing. You're the one that didn't help them breathe, JD Vance. And so they could have easily passed it. It could have passed. It could have become law. 70% of Republicans would have rejoiced because Republicans overwhelmingly support what's in the bill. And then they would be able to campaign on, hey, we protected access to IVF less than 2 months out from an election. And they call us radicals. Instead, what they did is they did the radical thing of blocking the bill that even Donald Trump says he supports. And so if anyone out there wants to attack the Republicans, you can't do it enough and you can't do it loud enough. They've earned every bit of it. But that said, I've been referencing some prior statements. I want to make sure that you see the actual evidence. So take a look at this.
How would this work if a state, and you believe that states should have the right to make these decisions, if a state bans IVF, but Donald Trump says he wants to guarantee and or pay for IVF for everyone who wants it, how would that work if a state banned it?
Well, John, I think it's such a ridiculous hypothetical because Alabama, which is maybe the most conservative state in the entire union, has actively protected fertility access and fertility treatments. There's no state in the union, whether a right-wing state or a left-wing state, that I think is trying to ban access to fertility treatments.
Oh, first of all, I love that he allows the fact that the court there overturned what the legislature already did and likely will want to do again. He's like, oh, they protected it. Who the hell is they in that sentence, JD Vance? I love that. It's like when racists are like, there's no racism in America. We elected Barack Obama. Who the hell's we? You weren't part of that. And so that's an easy little evasion for him. But again, this is the party that never stops talking about needing to outlaw migrants voting, something that is already 100% illegal and doesn't happen. But their evasion in this case is, we don't need to protect access to a thing we say we want you to have access to because not enough people are trying to kill it yet. No, that might be a reason for you to not sit down and do 6 months of research into producing a bill and then write it and then pass it, since your excuse here seems to be legislative laziness, but the bill is already there. All you have to do is not filibuster at JD Vance. And so your argument makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We're gonna end with this. So right now, there's no state that is actively trying to take away the rights. Although I will remind you, the bill would not just have protected your legal access to it, it would have made it easier. It would have made it financially easier. It would have helped many people be able to financially pass the obstacle towards actually being the sort of American that they say should have any say whatsoever, which is when you have a kid. Until then, you're not worth a damn, they say, and yet they don't want to help to fund it. And so here is a map of the states that had fetal personhood bills trying to make its way into laws. Louisiana is the only state that already has a personhood law on the books, but there are a number where they are trying to. And if that happens, then that can be a precedent that will allow legislatures to try to take the next step and say, well, IVF violates our fetal personhood thing. And even if that doesn't happen, it is 100% possible for courts in those states to do that. And the Republicans, obviously, the conservatives in our legal system have shown an incredible willingness to legislate from the bench. And so it would be great to get out ahead of that and actually proactively protect these rights, particularly when Donald Trump is saying that's what he wants to do. I think JD Vance and Donald Trump should talk. I think that would help us to avoid some of these little issues. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.